Working together, we will shape the future together. Welcome to Global Forum in Tel Aviv.
Hi everyone, I'm very, very excited and honored to be here. My name is Adi. I have 3 kids, one is 5 months, and I'm a social entrepreneur. My journey started when I was 12, and I started to volunteer in a nonprofit and be a personal tutor of a 3-year-old kid that had CP named Kfir, cerebral palsy. Kfir couldn't walk and couldn't talk and couldn't do physically anything on his own. But when I first came to him, I fell in love immediately, and he became like a second brother to me. And growing up next to Kfir taught me that we all have disabilities, that we all have wheelchairs, just that with Kfir anybody could see his wheelchair. And that the biggest challenge is not the fact that he can't speak and he can't walk, rather it's the lack of social life. Kids that study in the segregated special education system often feel very lonely and very isolated, and the opportunities of having social life and friends afternoon is very, very challenging. So when I was 16, I started a youth movement in this country, the first and only inclusive youth movement called Krembo Wings, Knofayim Shel Krembo. I started actually by duplicated Adi and Kfir, this personal tutorship into a group, and we met every week and we just played. This movement today is operating 100 branches with more than thousands of kids and teenagers all around the country. And for me, the biggest thing is that there is a new generation that's growing up in this country, a new generation that's seeing diversity as an asset and not a burden. When I left Krembo Wings in 2014, I decided that I wanted dedicate myself into the formal education system and actually to take this into the formal education system. So I started the first and only inclusive school network in this country. And this September, we'll be operating 31 schools and kindergartens with more than 6,000 teenagers. Thank you. Because I feel that the only way to make a change here, a deep, authentic change, a cultural change, is really to work through education. That's the only way to change society. 11 years ago, I started another initiative around the Holocaust Memorial Day. I don't have any family personal connection to the memory of, to the Holocaust, but 11 years ago, I forgot it's the Holocaust Remembers Day. I didn't have nothing to do, and I didn't want just to watch the television, so I was going to a formal ceremony. And I didn't feel anything. It felt like a historical event that happened far away. And I was asking myself where this day will be in 20, 30, 40 years from now, when the survivors won't be here anymore, and maybe even the second generation. And if I feel this way now, what is going on with the teenagers, the TikTok generation? So the next year, I invited 10 of my friends to my home, and I did an intimate gathering. I called it Zikaron Basalon. 40 people came to my living room, to my home, and I invited a Holocaust survivor to share her story. When she sat down in my living room, the first thing she said, I hope not to disappoint you, because I wasn't in Auschwitz, and I don't have the number. And I was just a little girl, so I just escaped, so I hope my story will be enough for you. And when she shared her story, it felt like she's giving us a story. And it wasn't 6 million, it was one person and one story, and now it was our story. And then a friend just picked up a guitar and started playing the songs, and my partner started to facilitate an open conversation of why do we need to remember and what kind of values we take to our lives today. And that was the most inspiring and powerful evening I ever experienced. And I was thinking to myself, what will be if that will be the day to commemorate the Holocaust Remembrance Day? This year we had 2 million people who opened their house in 65 countries and did Zikaron Basalon. survivors, second generation, recorded testimonies, but most importantly, an open and meaningful conversation. And I hope from the bottom of my heart that in 20, 30, 40 years from now, this memory will still be the compass to lead us to be more moral today. I have 30 seconds. Oh my God. Okay. Okay, so no one taught me how to create social changes and how to create those big movements. The only thing that really guided me was the feeling that it's my shift. It's our responsibility. I can't leave this for the Ministry of Education, to Yad Vashem, to others. And I just jumped into the water. It's a bungee jump. I didn't know how to do or what to do, but I started small. And I feel that the biggest thing is not asking for permission from anyone. And I invite you not to cut anyone's wings, especially not your own. If you have a vision, if you have a goal, it's a hard work. It's a hard work, but changes are possible. And this society, the Israeli society, is amazing because it's diverse. And we will make it amazing. Thank you so much.
Please welcome AJC Executive Council member Tony Meyer.
Good morning. I'm pleased and proud to be here with you today. Welcome to the last day of the AJC Big Tent in Israel. I would like to acknowledge and embarrass probably my 15-year-old daughter, Olivia, who's here with us today. and for Global Forum as a member of the LIFT cohort. The theme of last night's great debate, great debate, and continuing in this morning's final plenary session is the relationship between Israel and the Jewish diaspora. Therefore, it is very timely that in just a few minutes we'll hear from Minister Amichai Shikli, Minister of Diaspora Affairs and Minister of Social Equality of the State of Israel. Minister Shikli holds a very important position, a very timely and important position, one that is particularly relevant to the conversations we've had at Global Forum over the past 3 days. He is keenly aware of AJC's advocacy on behalf of the Jewish community, including diaspora Jewish community, in its entirety and with our diverse range of views and religious practices. The relationship between Israel and diaspora Jewry is and has been of central importance to AJC for as long as Israel has been in existence. In 1950, almost 75 years ago, only 2 years after Israel's founding, it was the then president of AJC, Jacob Blaustein, and Israel's first prime minister, David Ben-Gurion, who worked together to forge that template for how the state of Israel and the American Jewish community would interact with each other to establish the principles that exist throughout that period of time and exist today. And 73 years later, we're still as intensely focused on that topic because of its crucial importance. And we are proud of our central role in maintaining that strong and enduring relationship. At the same time, there is much to celebrate and much to continue to discuss. We need to be aware of the challenges that exist and need our attention, and we need to discuss them. We are deeply committed to working with Israel's leaders to enhance Israeli diaspora relations and to ensure that every Jew will always feel comfortable and welcomed in the State of Israel. Please extend AJC hospitality and join me in welcoming Minister Amichai Shikli.
Good morning, everyone, dear guests. CEO Ted Deutsch, Michael Tichner, the President, Avital Leibovich, Director of AJC Jerusalem, משפחות שכולות, Asil, Sawad. It is a great privilege to be here with one of the most vibrant Zionist Jewish organizations that we have. We are in between two interesting parashot that we read in the Torah. I know we are in a week earlier from what you read in the diaspora, but we are in between Beshalach and Korach. In the parasha of Beshalach, we have the story of the 12 spies, of Kalev, of Hoshea bin Nun. The spies who spoke badly against Eretz Israel. We were used in the past to see from time to time in lectures BDS activists trying to harass and to prevent Israeli speakers and Israeli leaders to speak in conference, to disturb them, to harass them. And unfortunately today, some of us are acting even worse than those BDS activists, harassing Knesset members and ministers, sometimes even with violence in the streets of New York. Although that this is a government that was elected by an overwhelming majority, that was established without deceiving its voters, a government of 64 mandates. The next parasha, the parasha that we're going to read in Shabbat, is Parashat Korach, which is also related, because it says in Masechet Avot, כל מחלוקת שהיא לשם שמיים, סופה להתקיים. Every dispute that is in the sake of heaven will last. וכל מחלוקת שהיא אינה לשם שמיים, אין סופה להתקיים. A dispute that is not for the sake of heaven will not last. איזוהי מחלוקת לשם שמיים? What is a dispute for the sake of heaven? This is the dispute of הלל ושמאי. מחלוקת הלל ושמאי. And what is a dispute that is not for the sake of heaven? This is מחלוקת קורח וכל עדתו. This is a dispute that is about envious, it's about the seek of power, of honor, and this dispute will not last. And I'm optimistic, and as Kalev said, as Hoshea said, טובה הארץ מאוד מאוד. In the Ministry of Diaspora and Combating Anti-Semitism, we have embraced the motto that is appearing in the Sefer, the book of Chovot HaLevavot. A little bit of light repels much of the darkness, and we are focusing on doing. We have managed to increase the budget of the Ministry of Diaspora by more than 200%. We have allocated $40 million for education abroad, and we are launching Project Aleph Bet, Project Aleph Bet, that is aimed to increase the amount of children that will go and join Jewish day schools, mainly in North America. I don't know if you know, but currently only 5% of the non-Orthodox kids goes to Jewish day schools, and our goal is to have much more Jewish children that will go and join into Jewish day schools. In the past 4 months, we have been learning and researching every research that has been made by foundations, experts. We've met with dozens of experts and foundations, and we've learned from beautiful models, especially from the amazing communities in Toronto and Montreal in Canada, federations that took decision that no matter what, Jewish education will be their top priority, and they have managed to change the course of the trend and to bring schools that were cut in almost half of the students and to bring them back into prosperity in one school, which I think is the biggest Jewish school outside of Israel, a school named Chat Tenenbaum. In 2008, there were 1,500 students in that school. 8 years later, 2016, they went down to around 700 students. They've lost almost half of the students. And when they started with a project, and foundations decided to invest, reduce the tuition by a third, invest in the teachers, in professionality, they have managed to increase the numbers, and they are standing now on 1,500 students once again. So our mission is with the JFNA, with the Federation, with the leadership, with major foundations all across North America, to raise enough money and to invest it wisely to bring more and more Jewish kids to the system, to the Jewish schools, because I don't see any other way. How can we flourish and how can we prosper without Jewish education? And also, even if we are dealing with anti-Semitism, the cure for anti-Semitism on the long run is Jewish education. And I would like to end with a short story. It is a story about Herzl. The greatest biographer of Herzl, Alex Bain, who edited his writings, 600 pages of biography, and in the last page, he says, actually, Herzl's vision, Herzl's dream, was not a Jewish state. When I read it, I was shocked. What do you mean was not a Jewish state? And then he continues. He saw it only as a tool. His true dream, as he said in his speeches and in his writings, and also in a dedication that he wrote in an album that was dedicated for the orphans of Kishinev. And then he quotes Herzl's dedication. When will all my efforts upon earth will be worthy for me? When the young, miserable Jews will become young, proud Jews. These are the words of Herzl's, and this is our mission, to have young Jews that are proud of their legacy, their heritage, their identity. That is the mission that we have. That is the mission that we share. This is our vision and dream. And it's not our private. This is Herzl's vision, Herzl's dream. And I think we are together in this mission. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to work together. And we're going to change the course of the events and to bring prosperity for the spirit of Judaism and for the young Jews wherever they are. Thank you. Toda rabah.
When I joined AJC, it was emphasized to me how AJC wanted Jews to feel safe wherever they lived. And that really appealed to me because there was a focus on making hatred and anti-Semitism not be a threat to Jews wherever they wanted to be, whether it was Europe, Latin America, or the United States, Israel included. But there was a focus outside of Israel. So as I have gotten older and my 3 children have become my 3 young adult children, I have thought a lot about how they live their Jewish lives. And each of them lives their Jewish life very differently. I couldn't have imagined that my kids would watch me become AJC Regional Board President and be so affected by that they would then reach out and say, Mom, can you help us understand how we talk to or how we listen to? I can't think of a more obvious example of how my involvement can have an impact. Of course, they're my kids, but I actually would have thought that my kids would be the last ones to reach out to me. My husband and I have spoken a lot over the last couple of years, thinking about what's next in terms of how we make an impact. And that is a large reason why we've doubled down on our commitment to AJC. AJC's focus on bridge building is probably the #1 reason that I was attracted to, and I remain committed to its work.
Please welcome AJC Board of Governors member Craig Unterberg.
Good morning, everyone. I first want to say this has been an unforgettable global forum, and it has reiterated the reason why my family is fully committed to AJC. So thank you, AJC. Given the way that Israel is covered by the world media, the true essence of this country is generally overlooked. The extraordinary stories that define this nation, the diverse population, the vibrant culture remain unfamiliar to far too many. And this is a true shame, because we know that Israel is a country like no other. Its citizens are like no other, including the remarkable recipients of today's reward. It is my honor to announce that the recipients of this year's AJC's Moral Courage recipients are the Sawaid family. The Sawaid family is part of a Bedouin tribe that resides in Israel's Galilee. Even in the face of devastating losses to their family, the Sawaid family has never wavered from their commitment to keep Israel secure and to protect all their citizens. This family is also a shining example of the diverse Israeli society that we all cherish. So I now ask you to please look at the screens as we learn more about this incredible family.
Was killed during a stabbing attack at a checkpoint in eastern Jerusalem. Asim Suad, member of a Bedouin tribe in northern Israel, succumbed to his wounds.
Please join me in welcoming the Sawaid family to the stage to accept AJC's Moral Courage Award. Trad and Mustafa, thank you so much for being here today to accept this honor. We know there are no words that can make up for the sacrifices that your family has endured. But please know that there is so much gratitude for everyone who loves this country. And we appreciate everything that you have done. So it's our deepest honor to honor you today with this award.
All right, we're on.
Lyft has helped me better understand what it means to be part of the Jewish people. So with AJC, I've learned a lot of strategies that I can use to make my own mark in the Jewish community and in the world.
AJC's LIFT program is creating leaders today by providing the kind of training that they need and leadership opportunities that they want to take advantage of. These are leaders that are going to change the future of our community and our country.
I was most looking forward to meeting with people on the Hill. I do want to do something in the future, either in like law or politics, so I feel like this was kind of the perfect program.
I decided to become part of the LIFT program because I felt like it would fill in gaps that my prior education about Israel and advocacy. The LIFT program has helped me understand how to have difficult conversations about Israel and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and its history.
The LIFT program has helped me advocate for Jewish justice.
These are young people who make a decision to be involved, who are participating in this program to become stronger, more knowledgeable, more resilient advocates.
So I think the biggest skill I got from LIFT was the idea of interfaith dialogue. To become peaceful and reduce anti-Semitism, we need to kind of look at other communities first, see what they need, so we can kind of create that interfaith partnership that will overall help us both succeed.
I think the most impactful thing was learning about African American and Jewish relations and then going to the African American History Museum, because part of Judaism is learning about how Judaism interacts with the rest of the world.
From LIFT, I've definitely gotten access to people I can reach out to. Meeting other Jewish teens and being able to connect over, unfortunately, things like anti-Semitism, but also positive things like shared experiences has been really wonderful.
There are so many different kids that are part of this program from all different backgrounds and different schools and different levels of education and Judaism and observance.
I've talked to people from Chicago, people from New York City, people from Detroit. It's just really nice to get to see all these new faces, yet share the same ideas with them.
It's such a great environment to have these conversations and to learn from such amazing people, and I've really made amazing connections.
I honestly couldn't imagine my Jewish identity now without having taken part in this amazing program.
I'm leaving LIFT feeling more comfortable knowing that I have the tools to combat anti-Semitism wherever I see it in society.
I'm leaving the LIFT program feeling more confident about my knowledge of Jewish history and the history of anti-Semitism.
I think I'm just overall leaving LIFT feeling more empowered to advocate for the things that I believe in and feeling equipped to do so.
AJC is an incredible organization, and joining LIFT is one of the best ways to get involved and become a part of this amazing movement.
This is a moment to shape a generation of leaders for the Jewish community.
I'm leaving LIFT feeling sad to leave behind this amazing experience, but also empowered. And with a lot of work, which we're already putting in, we can help stamp out the problem of anti-Semitism and create an even stronger Jewish identity in today's America.
Please welcome AJC Board of Governors member Ruth Lapidus and AJC National Leadership Council member Sid Lapidus.
Okay. Good morning. Ruth and I are so honored that at the conclusion of this fabulous global forum, and I think we should give a hand to everybody who participated and made this happen. We have been asked to introduce Yossi Klein Halevi.
In today's fast-paced world, there are some values that are becoming more and more rare, such as civil discourse, respect for other points of view, and changing one's mind.
Our next guest, Yossi Klein Halevi, is the embodiment of all three. In his youth, he was a follower of the radical Meir Kahane. Halevi's 1995 book, Memoirs of a Jewish Extremist, examines his transformation from someone who embraced violence and rage to someone who understood the importance of mutual understanding and dialogue.
Today, Yossi Klein Halevi is an intellectual giant in the world of Israeli-Arab dialogue, Muslim-Jewish relations, and Israel diaspora ties. He is one of Israel and the Jewish people's foremost public intellectuals on the world stage. He captures the excitement, joy, and complexities that exist within the state of Israel, and with his widely acclaimed books, Letters to My Palestinian Neighbor and Like Dreamers. He is a wonderful example of someone who prizes open conversation while remaining true to his own values.
We can't think of many people who are a better example for all Jews, young and old, than Halevi. As the rising Jewish generation takes on today's issues, Halevi is a model of what bold yet thoughtful leadership looks like. He demonstrates that discourse and conversation are not only possible, but are barely needed, and that being proudly Jewish and unapologetically Zionist are qualities that should be admired.
This morning, we are honored to have an alumni of AJC's Leaders for Tomorrow program, or LFT, interview Halevi here on the plenary stage.
So please join us in welcoming Yossi Klein Halevi and LFT alumnus Francis Geller from New York City, our hometown. Thank you.
Before we begin, we'd like to thank the members of the AJC family who generously sponsored the participation of young leaders at this year's Global Forum. We're so grateful to be here, and you have our sincerest appreciation. Yossi, you have written extensively about the state of Israel diaspora ties and have a very personal connection to this. What are some of the key challenges today, and how can Israelis and Jews around the globe work to strengthen our shared bonds?
So, Francis, delighted to be doing this with you. And hi, everyone. It's really great to be back with the AJC. I've only been involved with the AJC for about 30 years, and writing and speaking, and you've really been blessed with the Jewish world's best leadership over the years, and that tradition is continuing with TED. So I'm just delighted to be here. So, Francis, when we think about the increasingly complicated nature of diaspora-Israel relations, when I was growing up in the U.S., in the American Jewish community of the 1960s and 70s, Israel could do no wrong. And we didn't want to look at the fine print because Israel was the Jewish people's miracle child. And there was too much at stake. Israel was the emotional and even mythic counterweight to the Holocaust. The Holocaust had just happened a few decades before. It was still a living wound. And so, for understandable reasons, the diaspora really didn't want to look too closely at the fine print. And now, of course, as the relationship matures, we're much more aware of the difficulties that each community is facing. These are the two seminal Jewish communities of our time. And before looking at the fine print, before looking at the problems, I think we need to begin by celebrating this moment in Jewish history that we're living in. This, to my mind, this is the most extraordinary time in Jewish history because we have, on the one hand, the most successful expression of Jewish national sovereignty that we've ever had, and I'm including the Davidic kingdom of 2,500 years ago. This is by far the most powerful, the most influential expression of Jewish national sovereignty in history. And at the same time, we've seen the almost simultaneous emergence of the most self-confident and most powerful diaspora in Jewish history. And so before we look at the tensions, the inevitable tensions, we need to really start from that place of owning the privilege, and I use the word privilege in a very positive sense, the privilege of being Jews at this moment in our history. So the difficulties are inevitable. We have very, very different experiences as Jewish communities. The Israeli experience is to live in a region which until recently, and it's changing now, but until recently the region was almost uniformly hostile to our existence. And that included the very formalistic peace treaties that we had with Egypt and Jordan, which were really kind of extended ceasefires. And now we're in a new era, and it's going to take us some time to adjust to that. But for most of our history, we were in a region that did not accept our existence. And so the natural tendency among Israelis was to respond with deterrence to our surroundings. In America, the Jewish community, as you all know, experiences quite the opposite dynamic, which is you are embraced by your surroundings. And so the Jewish community has wisely devised strategies of openness, of flexibility in your Jewishness. And the starting point for a necessary realignment between Israel and American Jewry is recognizing the very different and necessary strategies that each community has devised in relation to our surroundings. What worries me about this moment is, and this I see as really the great danger that we're facing in the relationship, is that what has held the relationship together is symbolized by the two flags on the bima of most American synagogues. And what those two flags represent, to me, is the commitment to a Jewish state and to democratic values. That, I think, is what those two flags are communicating. What's beginning to happen in both communities is a growing challenge to the necessary entwinement of those two values. In Israel, it's being expressed, as we see before us, with a rising anti-democratic sentiment, which is no longer just confined to the fringe. It has now been brought into the heart of the Israeli government. And that's on the one hand. And that is a growing part of the Israeli public, still, thank God, a minority, but growing, that is looking at democratic norms with deep suspicion and sees democratic norms as antithetical to our ability to defend ourselves, which is a very dangerous opposition. In the American Jewish community, as you all know, the danger there, and so far I think it still is confined to the fringes, but also growing, a questioning of the legitimacy of Israel as a Jewish state. How is Jewish and democratic, how can they be compatible? And I feel that what our generation's job is to affirm the essential connection between Jewish and democratic, and it's not an easy connection, and we need to stop fooling ourselves. It's a very difficult meeting point between these two non-negotiable commitments. Israel that is not a Jewish state is not Israel, and for me, in Israel that's not a democratic state is unrecognizably Israel. And this is what we need to affirm. So.
Well said. In February, you wrote an open letter with journalists Mati Friedman and Daniel Gordis about urging North American Jews to take a stand against Israel's proposed judicial reforms. You said that diaspora Jews have both the right and the responsibility to speak up. What was the response to your piece, both in Israeli society and abroad?
So maybe I'll preface my response, Francis, by noting in passing the coincidence of appearing right after Minister Shikli. And I'd like to just respond very briefly to 2 points that he made. The first was he claimed that this government was elected by an overwhelming majority. In fact, there were a few thousand votes that separated the two blocs. This applause is one of the reasons why I love AJC. So let me give you some applause. And the second point that he made almost in passing, almost to himself, I had to ask myself if I'd really heard correctly, is he called those Israelis who were demonstrating in New York and around the country against him in particular, but other government ministers, he called them BDS activists. Now, I happen to personally know many of those people, and in the last months, I've been working with that group. And my appeal, and I'm going to say this in the most restrained way that I can, my appeal to you, Minister Shikli, is to stop defaming the loyal Zionist opposition. And now to your question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So, this was, I think it was in February that Mati Friedman, Danny Gordis, and I wrote a joint open letter to you, to the American Jewish community, the community that we come from and that we've been engaged with for many decades. You have been my principal audience, the American Jewish community, really for 40 years since I moved to Israel 40 years ago, and the same is true for Danny and for Mati. And we've never done anything remotely like that letter. I never dreamed that I would be writing an open letter to American Jews to protest against my government. I have never protested against my government. I have opposed policies left, right, and center, but I've also voted for governments left, right, and center. In the past, I have voted for Netanyahu, and I voted for the Likud more than once. And today, I regard this government as a moral disgrace to the Jewish people. And the response that we received to our letter was overwhelming gratitude, beyond anything else, just simple gratitude, as if American Jews needed permission to speak out. And I say as if, because I don't believe that you do need anyone's permission. This is a moment that has in it tremendous positive potential. First of all, in Israel, we are seeing the rise of liberal, patriotic, centrist Israel. This is something, and these demonstrations are not coming out of the left. This is something that I think needs to be emphasized. There are certainly parts of the left is involved in the demonstrations, and I'm very pleased that they are. But it's my camp, the camp of the center, that is really leading these demonstrations. And if you look at the symbol, what is the symbol of the protest movement? It's the Israeli flag. Now, if you think about the American context, and I say this with a great deal of pain, because in the American political context, one side of the debate has essentially appropriated the flag and patriotism. And here, that has not been allowed to happen. And liberal Israel has found its voice, has found its determination, and is no longer amorphous in the way that I think a center tends to be. Liberal Israel is fighting for a liberal definition of democracy and a liberal definition of a Jewish state. And I want to just briefly explain what I mean by both of those. A liberal definition of democracy is that democracy is a dance, a complicated dance, between the rights of the majority and the rights of a minority. This government sees democracy as winner take all. And we hear this over and over again. The Supreme Court is a non-democratic institution. Who elected you? The job of a Supreme Court is precisely to be a counterbalance, protecting the rights of the minority from a potentially overreaching majority. In terms of a Jewish state, we also have here a very deep disagreement between the liberal camp and this government. The liberal Zionist understanding of a Jewish state is that Israel is the state of the Jewish people. Period. Whoever we are, the whole mess, whoever we are, full Jews, half Jews, quarter Jews, and that's embodied in the most radical Zionist law on the books, the law of return. The law of return goes far beyond the Reform movement's patrilineal definition of Jewishness. The law of return welcomes into Israeli society. It isn't technically a definition of who is a Jew, but in practice, it brings into Jewish Israeli society anyone with a single Jewish grandparent, anyone married to a Jew, for that matter. And certainly anyone converted by any denomination. And so, this government does not see Israel in quite that way. For this government, which is the first government that I would call, not in name, but in practice, an Orthodox government, this is the government of Judaism. This government believes that the state of Israel is the state of Judaism, and not Judaism in its broadest sense, one part of Judaism. The next big battleground is going to be over the law of return. This government intends to begin contracting the definition of who is eligible for admission into Israeli society. Now, when you asked me, Francis, about the relationship between diaspora and Israel, this is the issue. Israel as a Jewish state, Israel as a democratic state, by a liberal definition of both those identities. Because what's happening today, it's a very complicated moment. Because on the one hand, we have an emergency agenda. And that agenda is we have to save the court. And it's literally that. If we hadn't been out on the streets every week for the last 6 months, we would have an override in place where the Knesset would be able to veto any decision by the Supreme Court with a simple 61-seat majority. That has been stopped because of the protest movement. I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening here.
Okay, I would like to ask another.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Can I ask you? Continue. Sorry.
This fight, this struggle, is not just mine as an Israeli. This struggle belongs to the whole Jewish people. And I would urge you all, the people who are outside, who've been outside through the Global Forum demonstrating, are not demonstrating against the Global Forum. They are inviting you to join with us to defend a liberal, expansive definition of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. And so I see this moment as a tremendous opportunity for us to deepen the relationship, to take us to the next level, to the maturation of the American Jewish-Israeli relationship, where we can be together in the most difficult issues. And there's nothing more difficult than a threat that's internally generated. We all know how to deal with external threats. We've been magnificent, the two communities together, in dealing with threats that come from outside. How do we deal with threats that come from within? And how do we deal with those threats without creating, God forbid, a schism among the Jewish people? And it's a balancing act. On the one hand, I feel this tremendous anger and fear, a sense of protectiveness for Israel. On the other hand, the people who vote for this government are not my enemies, and they're certainly not deplorables. They are my partners in building and defending this country. And after this is over, we're going to have to figure out how we begin healing this wound. But first, the first order of business, the emergency agenda, is to save Israeli democracy.
Amen. As young Jews, we have seen and experienced the rise of anti-Semitism worldwide, including in our communities within the United States. In your view, how can the global Jewish community respond effectively to growing anti-Semitism while also promoting understanding and allyship among different religious and cultural groups?
So I think that AJC is a model in doing exactly that. And there's no one who does it better than all of you. Building alliances on the one hand, and standing up for Israel, and the dignity with which AJC carries the Jewish story is really something that I think is a model for the Jewish people. So thank you. The challenge that we're facing now is that what's under assault is the credibility of the mid-20th century Jewish success story, both in Israel and in American Jewry. We went, as a people, from the lowest point in our history in 1945 to what I believe is the peak moment in Jewish history, which is today. And the enemies of the Jewish people want to undo that success story, see that success story as illegitimate. In Israel, they want to turn the return to Zion into a crime, into one of the 20th century's great crimes. Yasser Arafat used to call it history's greatest crime. Rather than one of human history's, never mind Jewish history's, one of human history's most inspiring sagas. And in America, you're facing a different, but in some ways similar challenge to the American Jewish success story, which is seen as somehow vaguely suspect. There's something in the American Jewish story which is coming at the expense of other people, of other minorities. And we need to own the extraordinary achievement of the generation that came before us, the generation of the Shoah and of the return to Israel, that bequeathed to us what I think is the most extraordinary story of Jewish survival in 4,000 years. And that's what we're fighting for now. We're fighting for the legitimacy, for the right of future generations to be proud of what we achieved. And the way that I frame this for myself is that we need, in the 21st century, to own the identity of being a survivor people. And by survivor people, I don't only or even primarily mean the people that endured the Holocaust, but the people that survived the Holocaust, that overcame the Holocaust. And I say that as the son of a survivor, but really as the son of a survivor people, because this is the great Jewish story of modernity. It's our story as a survivor people. And that's the story that's under assault, and that's the story that we need to defend together in Israel and in the diaspora.
Thank you. In Lift, we recently read your acclaimed book, Letters to My Palestinian Neighbor. You highlight how narratives surrounding the Israeli-Palestinian beliefs, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, often differ significantly with deeply held beliefs and historical perspectives shaping both groups' views. What steps do you believe are necessary for Israelis and Palestinians to rebuild trust, even in the face of past grievances and skepticism?
Look, I think that first of all, there's no short-term solution. And I say that with a great deal of angst. There will be no solution anytime soon. And I think we all know that. On the other hand, we need to be engaging in long-term peace building. Long-term peace building is a very slow process. It begins, first of all, within Israeli society, between Israeli Arabs and Israeli Jews. It extends to the region to strengthen the Abraham Accords and expand the circle of the Abraham Accords and take advantage of this unimagined gift that we've received in the last few years. I think one of the most significant developments in Israel's history and in the history of the modern Middle East. And finally, and I've left the Palestinian issue out for last, because I believe that that will be the last. But if we can strengthen coexistence within Israeli society, and if we can strengthen the Abraham Accords, we will be creating a kind of cushion, an envelope, that will allow, possibly, for us to reopen the two-state track. And my hope is that there will be a combined pressure from Arab Israelis within and the Arab world without on the Palestinian leadership to begin to finally making its peace with the legitimacy of the Jewish return home. And that's one half of the work. The other half of the work, and this is work that I have as an Israeli citizen, is to ensure that my government doesn't sabotage possibilities for a long-term solution as well.
Thank you, Yossi. Your stories and experiences have captivated our attention and encouraged young leaders to strive for excellence and positively impact the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Toda rabba.
Toda rabba lachem. Thank
future together. Welcome to Global Forum in Tel Aviv.
You know that Israel has now become a rising power in innovation, in technology, agriculture, and in security.
If we will not be a democracy, we will not be.
Jews must be able to practice their beliefs with no fears and with no harassment and be connected in their hearts to the state of Israel.
To announce the launching of the AJC National Task Force for the implementation of the White House Action Plan on Anti-Semitism.
Let us move forward, hand in hand, building bridges and ensuring that the memory of the past shapes a brighter and more compassionate future for all of us.
Please welcome AJC CEO Ted Deutsch.
Thank you very much. Before I get to the call to action, I want to just take a moment and pick up where the very moving presentation by the Saweed family ended, which was the plea and the belief, the understanding that they are part of us. And I want to make sure that the Saweed family understands that not only are you a part of us, but that we are a part of you, and that what you represent here in Israel, the commitment to this country, the sacrifices your family has made to this country, is an inspiration for every one of us here. And I, again, want to thank you for participating with us here. I was thinking about, as I thought about what to say here as we wrap up, I was thinking about another trip I made to Israel. A trip when we came on a congressional delegation, but while we were here, they discovered the bodies of 3 teens who were killed by terrorists, Eyal Yifrach, Naftali Frankel, and Gilad Shaer. And so we rearranged our entire schedule to go to the funeral. And when we went to Modi'in, we went to the funeral, we pulled up, it felt literally as if the entire nation of Israel was pouring out to mourn with these families. Thousands and thousands of Israelis came to show their support. There was a national outpouring of grief, and it was an outpouring of grief that was matched around the world by so many of us here who had spent weeks holding vigils, praying for the safe return of the three boys, only to tragically turn to mourning for them. And we mourned with the Israeli families, my colleagues and I, Ileana Ross-Layton and I here, but all of us around the world mourned with the families. Just as we stand with the Saeed family, we do this because we are part of this family. And what does that mean for us after 4 days here in Israel? Well, I also think about, while I'm here, being in Washington in 2020 on the White House lawn for the signing of the Abraham Accords, and what that represents for Israel, for this region, and again, for our broader family who care so deeply about Israel's place here in the region, and all of us at AJC who work so hard to defend it and strengthen it and deepen its place here. It means more opportunities and more hope for our family. And then I think about sitting in the AJC office in New York in my first week on the job as CEO of this incredible organization. And it happened to coincide with the moment when Kanye decided to use his platform to attack the Jewish community, to attempt to further normalize anti-Semitism. That same time that normalization of anti-Semitism in America really started to pick up. So what did we do on behalf of Jews across America, on behalf of our family in America? Well, AJC went to work. And that following December, when we met in the White House, and I, on behalf of AJC, was able to urge the White House to adopt a national action plan as we had called for more than a year. And then as we brought the special envoys from around the world that we had worked with to the White House to share their insights, AJC played a role at that moment. And the question then is, what have we done since, and what's happened here that we need to reflect upon? This is AJC's work. From the work we do here in Israel and the deep love and appreciation that we have for this country, the work of citizen diplomats that we are in advocating for Israel and the Jewish people across America and in capitals across the world. The advocates, the activists who will fight against efforts to delegitimize Israel, who will always stand for Israel's place in the world, who understand the importance of always fighting to ensure that the Jewish and democratic state of Israel is respected around the world. That's what we do. And in our 4 days here in Tel Aviv, this is where our AJC family came together. Look, we're all well aware, we are hyper-focused at this moment, as I said the other day, to the great challenges that we face, but also to the enormous opportunities at hand. The strength that we have working together as a family on behalf of our greater family around the world. As President Herzog said on this stage just a few days ago, he said, and I quote, "I am adamantly passionate about the story of the Jewish people. We are a small nation of about 15 million plus Jews around the globe in a sea of 8 billion human beings. We have a role to play. We have a story, and therefore we should protect and preserve the unity of our people amidst all of its differences." That's what this Global Forum has been about. I am, like all of you, Jewish and proud, but that is more true now than it was even when I arrived in Tel Aviv just a few days ago. I think about the feeling that we had at Kabbalat Shabbat with our AJC family, and Havdalah on Saturday night. Again, with AJC, a really important reminder that in addition to all of the advocacy that we do, we are an authentically Jewish organization, something we should be proud of. And as we gather in Tel Aviv for Global Forum, what a powerful way for us to begin the next chapter in AJC's great history, to redouble our efforts to strengthen the Jewish people. The Jewish people, our family who lives in the United States, in Israel, in the 60 countries from which our great Global Forum advocates have come. That's what we recall as we join here together from all around the world. And what did we do since we've been here? Well, obviously, we heard a range of political leaders, from Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Herzog to Minister Dermer, Opposition Leader Lapid, National Unity Chair Gantz, and Minister Chikli. We heard from journalists and civil society opinion makers with diverse viewpoints. We heard an exhilarating debate about the role of diaspora Jews in Israeli politics, and in addition to the meetings that have taken place, the public plenaries that we've had, the breakout sessions, the excursions. In addition to all of those, we also had meetings on the sidelines, meetings with members of the governing coalition in Israel, meetings with opposition leaders, and yes, meetings with Israelis whose commitment to Israeli democracy has resulted in their taking to the streets every week for 6 months. So we know our role. For 117 years, AJC has worked to enhance the well-being of the Jewish people. We've strived to enhance Israel's place in the world and to defend democratic values. And we heard views here that will help us going forward from across the world, from Europe and Latin America. We heard from the president of Uruguay. We heard from the president of the Jewish Confederation of Ukraine. We heard when Boris Loshkin came and spoke to us, not just the powerful words of Ukrainian Jewry, but the opportunity for us to announce to the world our rededication to the cause of Ukraine, standing resolutely against Russia's illegal invasion, and AJC's mobilization to help deliver $5 million in medical supplies to the people of Ukraine. It's impossible for any of us to have sat here as the Sharon Green Award was presented, seeing the strength of students at Northwestern and at Berkeley Law School, and not to feel better, not just about the future, but about what young people are doing to strengthen the Jewish community and fight back on behalf of the Jewish community everywhere in America. And it was an even more special moment than we had thought and planned and hoped for, when we had the opportunity to have the David Harris Award presented by David Harris on our stage to the special envoys combating anti-Semitism. How awful it is that we live at a time where the position of special envoy to combat anti-Semitism is necessary, but how gratified we are to see the work that they're doing in the United States and around the world. We heard the great debate yesterday. I have nothing more to add. It was a great debate indeed. The fact that I'm here talking about our views about Israel, well, it was a great debate. And I referenced earlier the Moral Courage Award. So many of us have been to Israel so many times, and it's always meaningful. But there are moments where we're just reminded that nothing here should be taken for granted. Not this nation, not the freedoms, not Israel's strength in the world. All of it is dependent upon real human beings we do our part as advocates, but for Israeli men and women who serve this country and put their lives at risk and are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of this country, that reminder should cause us to redouble our efforts to stand up for this country and for all of them. And we met with dozens of ambassadors and officials from all around the world. Our excursions went to Jerusalem to meet Israelis and Palestinians working for peace. They went to explore the history of Israel. We learned about high-tech startups that are flourishing just within a short distance of Hamas rockets aimed at Israel in Gaza. What an incredible few days. So what comes next? What do we do to ensure a secure Israel and the 15 million Jews in the world? Well, we fight anti-Semitism, we strengthen the global nature of our work. Here's the call to action. Here's what I think we need to do. First of all, I announced this the other day, but my friends, going forward, the implementation of the White House strategy using every incredible, talented member of our team at AJC in every regional office across America, and our influence from our global offices around the world, that effort will guide us for the next year. We will work with businesses and nonprofits. We will work with cultural organizations, universities, sports leagues, school districts, law enforcement. We will do what we always do, using our principled and nonpartisan approach to ensure that with our partners in the interfaith community, with our partners that we work with in the intergroup space, that we will stand together ensuring that the document produced by the White House does not sit on the shelf, but that the action items contained within it are actually acted upon for the benefit of the Jewish community. We will do all of that together with your help. Number two, our global efforts to fight anti-Semitism will continue. The special envoys who were on our stage have an important role to play in implementing their own plans around the world. These are plans to combat anti-Semitism and to foster Jewish life, and our offices all around the world will continue to work with them to make sure that those plans are being implemented and that the Jewish communities, large and small, all across the world, benefit from our work to help keep them safe. Number three, we will work to enhance Israel's place in the world and strengthen the Abraham Accords. We will do it in foreign capitals near and far. We will do it at the State Department, and we will do it at the White House. And yes, our regional offices will do it with consuls general, with state and local officials, with mayors, all of whom have a role to play. AJC has an army of citizen diplomats around this country, making sure that we are heard from, that the message of a stronger Israel in a region anchored by the Abraham Accords, as expanded with our urging and our help, is a message that only AJC can powerfully and does every day powerfully transmit. We will also work at the same time to fight for Israel's security, recognizing and combating the threat that Iran poses. Working to designate the IRGC as a terrorist organization because Iran's terror reaches beyond its own borders and threatens Jews across the world. We will work to ensure that Iran never has nuclear weapons and to preserve and to enhance the security of the Jewish and democratic state of Israel so that it will always remain the homeland for the Jewish people. And as we are called to action, remember, who besides us will act? This call for action is for every current and former Leaders for Tomorrow student, every Campus Global Board member, every Access member, every Project Interchange participant and alumni, every ambassador, consul general, diplomat, business leader, civil society leaders around the U.S. and the world, where we have cultivated relationships over weeks and years and decades. And most of all, we will do this because our regional leaders, our board members, our executive council, our institutes, everyone from around the world who has joined us here today and has joined us through the years, we cannot do this on our own. All of us working together will ensure that we are doing everything we can to further our mission. Our responsibility, and quite frankly, your responsibility, is too great. And what does that mean? Well, first, it means if you've been inspired by what's happened in Tel Aviv, then share that with your friends and neighbors. If you better understand now, having seen the breadth of the work we do and the power of our advocacy around the world, make sure that the people that you interact with back home understand that as well. And I would be remiss if I didn't at least pause to reflect upon the fact that a conference like this, more importantly, the work that we do around the world, doesn't happen on its own. The resources that are necessary for us to continue to do the work help to drive what we do and expand what we do and have more influence and a greater ability to help shape the future. So I would encourage all of you, while I'm grateful for your support for the work we do, I would encourage all of you to think about how much more you can do to help us do even more in our powerful work. And this, a lot of you have heard me say this. I want to be really clear. AJC should never be referred to as the best kept secret in the Jewish community. It cannot be a secret. It cannot be a secret that there is no organization in the world that advocates everywhere with leaders who can move the needle to help make the Jewish community stronger, safer, and more secure. Everyone must know of the deep relationships built up over decades that make us such effective citizen diplomats for the Jewish people and for Israel. And finally, it is time for the Jewish community everywhere, but especially in the United States, to know what every prime minister, foreign minister, senator, member of Congress, our local government officials, so many of whom have come across the stage over these past 4 days, to know what they do. That AJC is the global advocacy organization for the Jewish people, effectively advocating for the Jewish people in Israel everywhere in the world. You can help make that happen. All of you in this room, and finally that it starts with our Leaders for Tomorrow students, our Campus Global Board, and our Access Young Leaders, who are the key to the future and the present of this organization. So as we conclude here, I want to offer a few thank yous. First, I want to thank all of the participants from the United States and around the world who have come to Tel Aviv to join us for these past few days. You've been so engaged, thoughtful as always in each and every plenary and breakout session, and we are beyond fortunate to have you as the driving force of American Jewish Committee. You should give yourselves a hand. You should all know, and I'm very proud of this, this morning the food and beverage staff at the Dan Panorama approached some of our team to let them know that AJC's participation has been, and I quote them, lovely and wonderful. And seeing all of you here and speaking with you individually has restored their faith that diaspora Jewry cares deeply about Israel. To my friend and partner, Michael Tickner, our remarkable president, who has led us so ably through, well, let's just say a global forum that may have seemed seamless to all of you. But Michael, I know, and I'm grateful for your leadership. To Bobby Lapin, the chairman of our Board of Governors, Stephen Wish, the chair of our Board of Trustees, to our executive council, all of our board of governors members, and all of our lay leadership, I cannot thank you enough for everything you've done this week and always. Next, to our incredibly talented and dedicated team of professionals who planned and carried out this global forum. The global events team, led by Daniel and Leslie, with incredible did Daniel actually appear from backstage? Daniel and Leslie, thank you both. Belle, thank you for your tireless efforts and leadership. To Claire and Mara and Kelly and Lindsay and Bonnie and Natan, we're grateful for your incredible commitment and tireless effort. I want to thank everything we've done here, by the way, that looks so easy, all of the excursions, all the people coming through. That doesn't just happen either. I want to thank Avital and our incredible team in Jerusalem. The development team who's worked so tirelessly on Global Forum, Lital and Sarah, so grateful for your efforts, and Julie always for yours. The young leadership team, Alex, thank you for your efforts here. If you're on the AJC email list, particularly if you receive press releases, to John and the entire marketing and communications team, thank you. We know what you have achieved. And to our many policy professionals and global affairs colleagues who work so hard to brainstorm events, to come up with ideas, to secure speakers, to work on briefing papers, thank you for what you've done. And to our regional directors and colleagues, your incredible recruitment efforts are responsible for 1,500 advocates from around the world joining us. Thanks to you. To the AJC mailroom that dealt with printing and shipping logistics from New York to Tel Aviv. Our two partners, Erin and AX3, and to Tamar and Eshet for making sure everything ran smoothly. To my team in the office of the CEO, Casey and Jack and Tatiana. I am confident saying none of us could have imagined doing this and seeing this work the way it did 1 year ago. Thanks so much for your efforts. And then to all of the AJC professionals who worked shifts at registration, who stood as wayfinders, offered help, staffed breakout sessions, thanks for making everything run so smoothly. And to the partners from around the world who have joined us, the leaders from the world who spoke on our stage, we thank you so sincerely. And I also just want to take a moment, as I said before, to thank again and express how special it is for me that my family, Jill and our kids, are here. Thank you. All right, one final responsibility that we all have that falls on our shoulders as we go forward. Take the past 2 days that we've had here in Tel Aviv, think about the way that it makes you feel. Feel about Israel, feel about being Jewish. Take that feeling home to your communities. Take it home to your countries. Make sure your friends are standing with us. Stand up for Israel. Stand up for the Jewish people. Stand up for every Jew in the world. That's what we do. And so from Modi'in in 2014 at that funeral I described earlier to our work around the world, we stand together as a family. That's what AJC is. It's what we represent. It's what we embrace in the work that we do. We come together for Israel at moments of stress with proud American voices. We come together here with love for Israel. And we will continue to come together for the future of Israel and the Jewish people. We do this because we are family. So let's leave here more dedicated, more passionate, even more committed to the work that we do. We have shown what happens when AJC comes together on behalf of the Jewish people. There is only one Jewish state. We are only one people. And as the Talmud reminds us, Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Bazeh, we are all responsible for one another. And my friends, is there no greater blessing than that? Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for making this a remarkable global forum. And we will see you next year in Washington. Now, if you could rise, but don't leave quite yet, I would ask, at the risk of embarrassing her, my wife Jill, to join us on stage so we can conclude with Hatikva. Thank you again, everyone. And Jill, come on up, and I think it's going to be on the screen. Yes. Bobby, Stephen, come on up. Come on.
This concludes AJC Global Forum 2023. Thank you for joining us. Shalom and Toda Rabah.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, Post Office Box 360, Stamford, Connecticut 06904. Or you can call the JBS Pledge Line at 833-MY-JBS-TV. That's 833-695-2788. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. We thank you for your kind support.